Build back better, blah, blah, blah. Green economy, blah, blah, blah. There is no planet B. There is no planet blah, 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 blah. This is not about some expensive, politically correct green act of bunny hugging or blah, blah, blah. Build back better, blah, blah, blah. Green economy, blah, blah, blah. Net zero by 2050, blah, blah, blah. Net zero by 2050, blah, blah, blah. Net zero, blah, blah, blah. Climate neutral, blah, blah, blah. This is all we hear from our so-called leaders. Words. Words that sound great, but so far has led to no action. Our hopes and dreams drown in their empty words and promises. Of course, we need constructive dialogue, but they've now had 30 years of blah, 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 and where has that led us? Over 50% of all our CO2 emissions have occurred since 1990, and a third since 2005. All this while the media is reporting on what the leaders say that they are going to do instead of what they are actually doing. And then not holding leaders accountable for their action, or rather inaction. And don't get me wrong, we can still do this. Change is not only possible, but urgently necessary.
Yesterday, we also got the results of the Arizona audit, which were so disgracefully reported by those people right back there, and the headlines claiming that Biden won. We won on the Arizona forensic audit yesterday at a level that you wouldn't believe.
It is my hope that this is the beginning of the end of the big lie. Clearly, the former president doesn't agree with that.
This is an audit like we've never had before.
The firm hired by supporters of Donald Trump to conduct a partisan review of the 2020 presidential election in Arizona presented their findings to the Republican-led state Senate on Friday, highlighting a series of alleged issues while also confirming that Trump lost to Joe Biden in the state's most populous county. Arizona Senate President Karen Fann, the Republican who paved the way for the audit of Maricopa County's ballots, said the review's overall vote tally closely matched the initial results, confirming Biden's victory. The report also found that Biden won by a slightly wider margin than the official election results showed, with 99 additional votes for Biden and 261 fewer votes for Trump. Friday's presentation capped a widely panned effort prompted by Trump's false claims of widespread voter fraud. Despite his baseless assertions that he was cheated out of a second term in office, so far no such proof has been produced either by Trump or his backers. A wide array of election experts had long rejected the Arizona review as a highly partisan waste of time and money run by obscure contractors, including cyber ninjas, whose CEO Doug Logan has promoted conspiracy theories about orchestrated fraud in the election. While finding the overall vote tallies largely matched up, the final report focused on a series of alleged issues, including more than 10,000 potential voters who voted in different counties, which cyber ninjas called a, quote, critical finding. But as part of a point-by-point rebuttal on Twitter, Maricopa County called that claim laughable, suggesting those conducting the review may have failed to account for people with matching names and birth years in different counties, a not uncommon occurrence in a state of more than 7 million people. The Arizona review is part of a larger effort by Republicans to raise doubts about the 2020 election and gain more control over the voting process. So far this year, at least 18 Republican-led states have passed legislation curbing ballot access, moves they say are needed to ensure election integrity. Democrats say such laws are aimed at gaming the system, since Republicans tend to do better in low-turnout elections.
Vous le laissez. Attention, hein. Eh oh. Non, hein. Ça va pas, là. Monsieur le Président. Non, attends, hein. Vous le laissez, attention, hein. Et ça pas là. N'importe quoi, hein.
There have been a lot of politicians who have said that this is the first time in 20 years that America is not at war.
I stand here today for the first time in 20 years with the United States not at war.
I wish I could agree with them. And while we are very glad, especially veterans like myself, I served in Iraq, and a lot of my friends served in Afghanistan, we're very glad that these wars are coming to a close. But the fact of the matter is, with the authorization for the use of military force still in effect, there's no stopping this president or the next one from kicking things off again. Until and unless Congress repeals the AUMFs, we're still technically at war. Recently, President Biden followed through on President Trump's decision to withdraw the US from Afghanistan.
When I was running for president, I made a commitment to the American people that I would end this war. Today, I've honored that commitment.
Now, this was a great thing that we were able to get out of this entrenched war that we've been in for the past 20 years. But we shouldn't have to rely on the good nature of the executive, of the president, to do the right thing. And in fact, our previous administration shows that it's very dangerous to rely on the president to do the right thing all the time. He's just one person. That's why Congress has the authority for war powers. And that's why it's so important that Congress, as a representative of the people, makes sure that its voice is heard, especially when military force is used. The authorization for the use of military force, or the AUMF, is what Congress passes the bill to basically allow the military to be used in foreign actions around the world. And it's the closest thing we have in modern times now to a war powers or a war declaration. When the founders established the government, they actually created Congress and made sure that Congress had the power to declare wars, and that the executive, while he was the commander-in-chief, he does not have the power to declare war. He must go to Congress for that. And what this means in practice is that while the president is allowed to use the military to defend the US or to enact an emergency action in response to a crisis, if that action continues for a longer period, he must come to Congress and get authorization, and whether that means a declaration of war or an authorization for the use of military force. That's how it was set up by the founders. Unfortunately, especially over the last 20 years, those powers have been eroded to the point now that the executive has almost a blank check, especially with this 2001 AUMF, to send the military wherever he wants, whenever he wants. A lot of us enlisted in the military because of what happened on 9/11. Over the past 20 years, many of us have served multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan and 40 other countries around the world. And with the end of the war in Afghanistan, many of us were asking ourselves, for what? What was the point? We now know that there's no reason for us to continue to send young people who are enlisting today, many of whom were born after 9/11 and have no recollection of it, to go fight in these same wars that started 20 years ago. All of it really does is takes what's in the Constitution, that the Congress will have the war powers, and brings it back and basically reins in the powers that the executive currently has to send troops all over the globe. And by repealing the AUMFs and then possibly, if they need to be reinstated, they will be reinstated in a way that's much more specific, much more restricted and not so open-ended. So we don't have these continued entrenched conflicts happening again.
will you commit to ending Finsta?
Senator, again, let me explain. We don't actually do Finsta. What Finsta refers to is young people setting up accounts where they may want to have more privacy. You refer to it as privacy from their parents. What in my interaction with teens, what I found is that they sometimes like to have an account where they can interact just with a smaller group of friends.
Well, Finsta is one of your.
We've actually.
Finsta is one of your products or services. We're not talking here about Google or Apple. It's Facebook, correct?
Finsta is slang for a type of account.
Okay,
it's
will you
not,
end
it's not
that
a
type
product.
of account?
I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're asking. What I can say is that based on what we've seen in terms of teens using those kinds of accounts, we've actually given them additional privacy options to address those kinds of issues where they want more privacy so that they can have more privacy.
Well, I don't think that's an answer to my question. I think we have